November 1943. The Pacific War is 14 months old. An American submarine commander sits at a desk writing a letter. Not a report, not a request for orders. A letter in which he names himself, precisely and without hedging, as the reason for his own failure. I was responsible for an unproductive patrol and request to be relieved by an officer who can perform more satisfactorily. He signs it. He means it. His name is Commander Joseph Francis Enright, United States Navy. 49 days earlier, he took the USS Dace into busy Japanese waters, ran her for 7 weeks, and came home with nothing to show for it. He had picked up an intelligence alert about the fleet carrier Shokaku, a ship that had launched the planes that bombed Pearl Harbor, identified her, close to attack range, and then pulled back. Called it daylight, called it the escorts, called it something that wasn't what it was. He had the shot. He didn't take it. Admiral Lockwood grants the request. Enright is removed from command and sent to a desk at the submarine base on Midway. Filing paperwork, reading dispatches, watching the war continue without him. A career apparently over. A man who could not be trusted with the one decision that matters out there: whether to attack. What Enright cannot know is that 1 year and 12 days from now, this letter and this failure will have their answer. The ship at the center of it will not be Shokaku. It will be something far larger, something the world does not yet know exists. That ship's story begins 2 years earlier. A dry dock in Yokosuka. 4 carriers burning in the middle of the Pacific. May 1940. The Yokosuka Naval Arsenal, southwest of Tokyo. In dry dock number 6, a concrete basin built specifically to hold the largest ships Japan has ever attempted, workers begin laying the keel of what the Imperial Japanese Navy calls Hull Number 3. The project does not have a public name. The project officially does not exist. A concrete fence rises on 3 sides of the dock. Imperial Kempe secret police patrol the perimeter. The workers live inside the compound. They work 7 days a week. The penalty for speaking about the ship to anyone outside those walls, anyone, is imprisonment, possibly execution. The men who build her are not allowed to name her. The ship being born here has no identity at all. The strategic logic behind her is simple. Japan knows it cannot outbuild the United States. American industrial capacity is too vast, American steel production too deep. So the answer is quality over quantity. Build fewer ships, but build each one so powerful, so armored, so armed that no opponent can face it directly. Hull Number 3's 2 elder sisters, Yamato and Musashi, are the largest battleships ever constructed, each mounting 9 18-inch guns, each displacing more than 70,000 tons at full load. On paper, nothing afloat can stop them. Hull Number 3 is their sibling. She is 45% complete when the world changes. June 4th, 1942. Midway Atoll. In the space of a single afternoon, dive bombers from Enterprise, Hornet and Yorktown find Admiral Nagumo's carrier striking force with its aircraft on deck, rearming, refueling, caught between one mission and the next. 4 carriers go down: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. The Imperial Japanese Navy loses, in a few hours, more than it can replace in a year. The carrier force that opened the war at Pearl Harbor is gone. Within a month, the order comes down. Hull Number 3 will not be a battleship. She will be converted into an aircraft carrier. The question inside the Naval General Staff, the question that drives months of internal argument, is what kind of carrier she should be. Her hull is too deep, her displacement too vast, her design too far along to become a conventional fleet carrier. So the compromise that emerges is a hybrid. She will carry aircraft, 20 fighters, 20 bombers, 7 scouts. But her primary purpose will be logistics and support. A floating air base, a repair depot for planes that other carriers have lost. She will carry the fleet rather than lead it. Her name will be Shinano. She is fitted with 8 inches of belt armor above and below the waterline. Her main deck carries up to 7.5 inches of armor plate. Her flight deck adds nearly 4 more. She bristles with 16 5-inch guns, 145 anti-aircraft cannons, 12 rocket launchers. Her 4 steam turbines produce 150,000 shaft horsepower, enough to push her 72,000 tons at 27 knots. The engineers calculate she can absorb perhaps 20 torpedo hits before the flooding becomes unmanageable. Then comes June 1944, the Battle of the Philippine Sea. Japan loses 3 more carriers in 2 days. The Mariana Islands fall. B-29 superfortresses now have airfields within range of the Japanese home islands. The Naval General Staff makes its decision. Shinano must be completed within the year. The shipyard cannot meet the schedule. Workers are already on 16-hour shifts. There are not enough of them, and there is not enough time. So corners are cut. Quietly, systematically. Water tightness tests for hatches and compartments skipped. Inspections of bulkhead seals deferred. Ventilation ducts and electrical cable conduits that pass through watertight bulkheads left unsealed. Fire mains and bailing systems installed without the pumps they need to function. On October 8th, during the floating out procedure, a caisson at the end of the dock lifts unexpectedly as harbor water rises. The inrush drives the carrier forward into the head wall. Mooring lines snap. Bow structure below the waterline is damaged. Work continues. November 19th, 1944. The Imperial Japanese Navy formally accepts delivery of Shinano. A significant amount of detailed work remains unfinished. Captain Toshio Abe takes command of his ship and begins making lists. Abe is a graduate of the Naval Academy, a destroyer commander at Midway. Precise, undiplomatic, deeply competent, not the kind of officer who catastrophizes. When he presents his concerns to the Naval General Staff, they are framed as a professional engineer's assessment. The watertight doors in critical compartments have not been installed. Compartment air tests have not been run. Holes in bulkheads for electrical cables are unsealed. Ventilation ducts pass through compartments that must hold water if the ship is struck. Pumping capacity is insufficient to manage serious flooding. The crew, 2,500 men, is almost entirely untrained in damage control. He requests a delay. He wants more time to finish the ship. The Naval General Staff says no. Abe is told to sail. He is also told that his promotion to Rear Admiral is waiting for him at the end of this voyage. What he knows, and cannot change, is that the ship he is about to take to sea will not survive what he has already documented in his own hand, that it cannot survive. By September 1944, Commander Enright has spent long enough at his desk. He submits a request for another command. The Navy grants it, the kind of second chance that does not often come, and gives him USS Archerfish, a Yamato-class submarine fresh off her 4th war patrol with no confirmed ship kills. A disgraced commander, a boat with no confirmed kills. 2 failures heading into their 5th patrol together. Archerfish is 311 feet long. She displaces 1,526 tons on the surface. Her crew is 81 men, working compartments so narrow 2 people cannot pass without turning sideways. She makes 20 knots surfaced, 8.5 submerged. She carries 10 torpedo tubes and Mark 14 torpedoes. She is, in almost every dimension, the opposite of what she is about to encounter. Her 5th patrol orders are not to hunt. Archerfish's primary mission is lifeguard duty, standing by in the waters off Tokyo Bay to retrieve any American B-29 aviators who go down over Japan during the first superfortress strikes against Tokyo. She leaves Pearl Harbor on October 30th. She's a rescue ship. She's looking for men in the water. Not yet. November 28th, 1944. Evening. The sun sets over Yokosuka Naval Arsenal for the last time Shinano will ever see it. She sails at dark. Abe wanted daylight passage, time to work his untrained crew, time for his escorts to rest. The Naval General Staff denied it. There is no air cover available during daylight hours, so she goes at night, blacked out, running at 20 knots into open ocean. 3 destroyers form her escort. Isokaze, Yukikaze, and Hamakaze, veterans of Leyte Gulf, all 3 of them, still carrying battle damage, their crews exhausted. Even the ships sent to protect her are running on empty. In her holds, 50 Oka rocket-propelled kamikaze flying bombs, each one designed to be guided into an American ship by a pilot who will not survive the impact. 6 Shinyo suicide speedboats, roughly 2,500 men. The weapons she is carrying south to the Philippines are built on the premise that the only reliable weapon remaining is a human being willing to die. Shinano's cargo says everything about the state of the war she is sailing into. Abe has been briefed. He knows American submarines have sortied from Saipan and Guam in the weeks prior, heading for the home islands. He knows his waters are not clear. He sails anyway because there is no choice left. 300 miles to Kure. 16 hours at 20 knots. He needs to make it through a single night. 20 miles away, in the dark water off the entrance to Tokyo Bay, a different captain is staring at his wristwatch. Earlier that day, word reached Archerfish. No air raids. The B-29 strikes against Tokyo are cancelled. Enright has no one to rescue. He has a submarine, open water, and nothing to account for. He takes her north. He is free to hunt. At 8:48 in the evening, Archerfish's radar picks up a contact, 12 miles distant. Enright thinks it is a tanker. He moves toward it. An hour later, he can see through his binoculars what it actually is. A carrier moving fast with 3 destroyers. He gets on the radio. He begins to move to intercept. The clock starts. What follows is 6 hours of darkness, radar, and 2 men making decisions that will determine everything. Enright's problem is speed. Shinano can make 27 knots. Archerfish can make 20 on the surface. If the carrier simply ran south on its base course, she would walk away from any pursuit before Enright could get into position. He cannot chase her down. He has to get ahead of her, but Abe is not running straight. From the moment Shinano detects Archerfish, which she does almost immediately, she begins to zigzag. Standard anti-submarine procedure. The task group weaves back and forth across its base course, making its heading harder to predict, harder to lay a torpedo solution against. It is the right tactic, executed by a professional who knows his business. The problem is what Abe believes about the enemy he is zigzagging against. At 10:45, Isokaze spots Archerfish on the surface. The destroyer breaks formation to investigate. Abe orders her back. He will not let one of his 3 escorts be drawn away, because he is certain Archerfish is a decoy. Out in the darkness beyond his radar, he is sure there are more American submarines waiting. A wolf pack. The moment he sends Isokaze after the one submarine he can see, the rest of the pack will close on Shinano. He has seen this tactic. He knows how it works. He is right about the tactic. He is wrong about the wolf pack. Archerfish is alone. There are no other submarines. There is no pack. Abe is maneuvering 72,000 tons of warship to avoid submarines that exist only in his read of the situation, and he is applying that read with perfect professional rigor to a threat that isn't there. Every time Shinano's zigzag brings her back toward her base course, back toward Archerfish's position, Abe reads it as correct evasion. He thinks he is winning. He is walking his ship directly into the firing solution. On Archerfish's bridge, Enright watches the carrier move through his binoculars. He thinks about Shokaku. He thinks about what he did wrong. He picks up the tactical manual, and then he puts it down. He and his executive officer work through it. The carrier's base heading is 210 degrees southwest. She will keep weaving, but she has to swing back. There's only one way to reach Kur from here. He bets on it. He moves Archerfish to where the carrier will be when it comes back around. It is 2:56 in the morning. The moon is close to setting. In an hour, the sky will begin to lighten, and a submarine on the surface becomes visible, and everything changes. Enright raises the binoculars one more time. The carrier is turning toward him. 3:05. Archerfish dives. 3:17, 1,400 yards from the target. The order passes down the boat. 6 torpedoes, forward tubes, fire. 4 of them find the hull. 8 seconds between each impact. The first opens the fuel storage reservoir and the refrigeration plant along the starboard side. The second tears open hull sections further aft. The third strikes the number 3 boiler room. Every man on watch there dies before the water reaches them, and the structural failure cascades outward, flooding 2 adjacent boiler rooms through a single blast-open seam in an I-beam that was never properly tested. The 4th torpedo punches through the starboard air compressor room, floods the number 2 damage control station, and opens the ready fuel tank simultaneously. In the periscope image, Enright sees a fireball erupt near the stern. On Shinano's bridge, Captain Abe hears the impacts. He has heard torpedo explosions before, on smaller ships that survived. He does not lose his composure. Battle stations, damage control, casualty reports. The orders come in sequence, his voice carrying nothing the crew cannot afford to hear. Then he looks through the bridge's frontal window at the ocean ahead. The ocean is tilted. Shinano is listing already, and there are no sealed doors below to stop it. No tested compartments to contain it. The conduits are open. The ventilation ducts run unsealed through bulkheads that are now letting the Pacific in. Air is whistling through the ship's corridors as the sea fills the lower decks, and the men sent to stop it, untrained, undermanned, pressed from the bottom of the Navy's manpower reserve, cannot find the doors that were never installed to close. 400 feet below the surface, in the narrow steel tube of Archerfish, the crew waits. 14 depth charges arrive from the escort destroyers. They ride them out. Then, through the hull, they begin to hear something else, the sound of a ship dying, metals separating from metal, bulkheads giving way. The breaking up noises continue for 47 minutes. Enright says nothing. The crew says nothing. They listen. Dawn comes slowly over the Pacific, 160 miles southwest of Tokyo Bay. The light finds a 72,000-ton carrier heeled hard to starboard, her hull gaping, her decks beginning to wash over. The destroyers circle her like satellites that have lost their planet. Abe orders counter-flooding, pumping water into the port side to correct the list, and it works, partially. The list comes back to 7 degrees. Then the flooding resumes, past what the pumps can handle, past what anyone can do. At 7:45, Shinano loses all power. Hamikaze and Isokaze put tow cables on the carrier to drag her toward the coast, toward something to ground on rather than let her go to the bottom. The cables hold for minutes. The carrier is overweight with the water she has taken. The cables snap. On the bridge, an officer wraps the Emperor's portrait carefully in cloth. He carries it to the rail. The portrait is transferred by line to the destroyer alongside, hand over hand, passed off the dying ship like cargo. The 72,000-ton symbol of imperial ambition is going to the bottom. The Empire's symbolic presence departs by rope to a smaller vessel that will survive the morning. 30 degrees of list. The flight deck awash. At 10:18, Abe gives the order to abandon ship. At 10:57, Shinano capsizes. She takes 1,435 men down with her. Captain Toshio Abe is among them. He had made his list. He had named the unsealed doors, the untested compartments, the inadequate pumps. He had submitted it formally. in writing with the precision of a professional who wanted the record to show exactly what he knew and exactly what he had asked for. He was told to sail. He was right about everything. He died inside the proof of it. Post-war analysis by the U.S. Naval Technical Mission confirmed what Abe already knew. Shinano did not sink because her armor failed. The armor held. She sank because what was inside the armor was never finished. Japan does not announce the loss. There is no official acknowledgement, no public mourning, no record that a ship of this size went to the bottom on this day. The 1,080 survivors pulled from the Pacific are taken to the island of Mitsukojima and held there. They do not go home. They do not write letters. They wait, quarantined, until January 1945, when enough time has passed that the story might safely vanish. In a nation that cannot absorb another catastrophe, the loss of the world's largest carrier on her first day at sea is simply unutterable. The record is scattered. The ship, in official Japan, does not sink. She simply ceases to exist. America does not know what Archerfish has done, for a different reason. American intelligence, despite a captured Japanese aviator's warning in July 1943 that a third Yamato-class hull was being converted to a carrier, had concluded it had located all of Japan's surviving fleet carriers. When Enright surfaces and transmits his contact report, when he describes the size of what he attacked, the Office of Naval Intelligence does not believe him. They credit Archerfish with sinking a cruiser. Then they review the sketch Enright made through the periscope in the minutes before he fired, drawn at 3 in the morning, in a moving submarine with the approach bearing down, and upgrade the credit to a 28,000-ton escort carrier. The real figure is approximately 72,000 tons. The real name is Shinano. It will not be confirmed until the war ends and the records of a closed empire begin to open. September 2nd. 1945. Tokyo Bay. 12 American submarines enter the harbor and moor alongside the tender Proteus near the Yokosuka Navy Yard. The same yard where Shinano was built, behind the same concrete fence, under the same armed guard. Less than a year ago, the submarines are there to watch the formal surrender ceremony aboard USS Missouri. Enright is among them. He watches from the water. He departs when it is done. The Navy Cross had come earlier, awarded at Pearl Harbor on March 5, 1945, when enough of the truth had surfaced to recognize what Archerfish accomplished. The citation names Commander Joseph Francis Enright for extraordinary heroism. It describes 6 hours of determined pursuit. It describes a carrier penetrated at 1,400 yards. It does not describe what Enright knew, standing on that bridge at 2:56 in the morning, watching the clock run toward dawn. It does not describe the year at a desk, the letter he wrote, the carrier he let go. The record stands. Shinano remains the largest warship ever sunk by a submarine. Commissioned November 19th. Underway November 28th. On the bottom November 29th. 10 days in service. 17 hours at sea. The submarine that accomplished it was 1/46th her size. No carrier exceeded Shinano's tonnage until 1961, when USS Enterprise was launched. All 3 ships of the Yamato-class are at the bottom of the Pacific. The strategy that produced them, the perfect ship against the numerous ship, consumed every hull it built. In retirement, decades from the Pacific, Enright keeps a copy of his old cruise sailing list. Visitors describe him running his fingers down the names, pausing, telling the story attached to each one. He wrote a book about it in 1987. The man who found Shinano and the man who sank her, the same man, 43 years after the fact. He died in the summer of 2000. He spent the last years of his life telling the story of a decision made at 2:56 in the morning. Binoculars raised one more time, a carrier turning toward him out of the dark, a year of desk work behind him, a letter of his own failure on file in the Navy's records. He had been in this position before. Close enough, with enough information, staring at a choice. He had pulled back once. He never forgot how close he came to letting it go.